Alright, welcome everybody. It's going to be Sneak and Breach time. We're going back to Legacy, Magic Online. Moontime Dweller here. We're going to be playing against Lone Wolf 2K3. Hopefully they don't have a deck with a bunch of Force of Wills in it, but like I said in one of the other videos, it's about an 80% chance that they're going to have Force of Wills in their deck. So, two pretty terrible hands here. I think we are able to go to 5. This is still not strong. I think Blood Sun is good to keep on top there. It helps City of Traders. It's the only card that really it can help in our deck, but it also draws us a card. So it replaces itself, and it kind of hurts their land base a little bit if they have a bunch of wastelands and stuff like that. So, looks like they're going to have Force of Will in their deck. Looks like it's going to be a red-blue Delver, or it could be anything at this point. It could be, 4-color Delver. It could be Leovold. It could even be Show and Tell, or, a version of that. So many different types of decks that could be played right now. But I tend to think that it's going to be Delver right here, or Ponder, Preordain, Brainstorm. Okay, so Delver. I'd imagine since they have 5 cards in their hand left, it's going to be Force of Will here. This turn 1 Chalice on 1. Oh, actually, it goes through. That's pretty exciting. That's one of our big lines of defense against like a counterspell deck. Like I said, like I was mentioning earlier, they had Ponder, Preordain, Brainstorm, all those kind of cards. Path to Exile, Lightning Bolt, this Gitaxian Probe that they played. Obviously, the Delver Secrets. So, I mean, so many cards get blocked by Chalice of the Void. Okay, so they played Charter Course. That's one of the newer cards from an Ixalan set. You get to draw 2 cards, but since they attacked with a creature, they don't have to discard a card. That's really cool. That's a lot of good value. I can certainly respect that. So what we got to do here is sacrifice or exile the monkey or the ape. I believe it's an ape, right? Yeah. Totally different animal. So we'll play Blood Sun and make sure that when we play this mountain, we don't have to sacrifice City of Traders. Looks like they're considering hitting this with a Daze or a Force of Will. Okay. They let it hit the field. So I draw a Lotus Petal. That's pretty strong. I think I'm going to go for it and go ahead and play it. That might have been a little bit of a misplay. They could have dazed that there. Ooh, and I didn't play the mountain. That was not smart. Either way, though, in that regard, I mean, granted, it was a misplay. I didn't play my land. But if I draw another land here, it's really not going to change anything because all I have are 2 threats. If I end up drawing Sneak Attack, then fantastic. Or Through the Breach, great. So you got another land. So what I'm going to do here is just play City of Traders and hope for the best. So hopefully next turn we can get Through the Breach or Sneak Attack, and then we can hopefully play either one of them and go off. Play our stuff. But our opponent consistently has 7 cards in their hand, so I cannot get my hopes up too much. My only hope is that hopefully it's 7 cards of 1-drops, all 1-drops. I think a couple of their counter spells cost 1 also. I don't think they main deck Dispel, but they probably main deck Flusterstorm maybe, and some other ones. So that might be holding them down pretty hard, more so than I'm expecting. So we got Emrakul. We've already got 6 mana on the board, maybe 8 next turn. We're halfway to being able to just cast Emrakul. I have done that, I think, once while having this deck online. I don't know if I did it twice. I think it was just once. That I certainly remember. Well, we are well on our way to casting this Emrakul here. But I don't think we're going to be able to survive to do so. Unless we can actually finally draw a threat. Well, not a threat, an enabler. Yeah, we need an enabler. We have the threats. Boy, do we ever have the threats. So it looks like they're just going to be red-blue Delver, which is good for me. Leovold is pretty difficult to deal with. Even though I'm not playing Burn, and Burn just gets owned by Leovold because it's always, targeting the player or their creatures. I mean, this helps, but not really. It kind of hurts me more than it hurts them. They already have 2 basics out. So I'm not even going to mess with it. And I'm just going to hope that I get something good next turn. If I have a next turn. Down to 2. Lightning Bolt gets countered by Chalice. I think they had 8 cards in their hand anyway, so they're just casting stuff to get it out of their hand. Honestly, they're just telling me, how good of a card Chalice is against them. Just confirming it. So, another thing that's confirmed is they win game 1. There was really nothing I could do there. I did kind of want to draw my cards there and see what I could have gotten. Against this deck, I bring in more or less the same cards. 3 Red Elemental Blasts, 3 Trinispheres. And I might bring this in. It doesn't. It only hits the Jace the Mind Sculptor, I believe, from what I remember. It doesn't hit like Young Pyromancer or anything like that because they're all triggered abilities. So I hesitate to bring that in. I think Chandra could come out. And I believe the Blood Moons are not very good in this deck right now. Could be a very different take. But I think also I could take out 1 Blood Sun. Or maybe a Seething Song. I don't really want to take out a Through the Breach. I used to have 4 Through the Breaches in the deck, and it was a great card to easily cut 1 of. You could have the full 8, and then you could just cut 1 of sometimes. I cut 1 because of, I can't remember some other card I put in. And it's really made this sideboarding endeavor a little bit more difficult. So Blood Sun, I don't think it really affects them very much either. They might have Wastelands and, whatnot. But Blood Sun really isn't going to change anything. So I think maybe I could cut the Blood Suns and get the Confluences in the board, from the board, because they will destroy all the creatures that they have, and it seems like minus True Name Nemesis. But the Red Elemental Blast is actually a big reason Red Elemental Blast is in the sideboard is for True Name Nemesis. If we can hold 1 mana up, we can counter True Name Nemesis, potentially. So, can't counter it with a Crystal Veil, though. These are some particularly terrible hands right now. Our opponent kept their 7. This is pretty good. Singing Song's okay. I think it's good enough to keep on the top, and then just hope to get something that creates a 3rd mana and play Seething Song. Because we do have Inferno Titan. It's our lowest level threat, but you know, it still does at least 12 damage potentially. So. Like I said, turn 2 is going to be boring, but turn 2 normally is boring unless we have some kind of way to ramp or got a soul land like Ancient Tomb or the Crystal Veil that we had there in the 7 or the City of Traders, because then we can, you know, play this on turn 2 and really shut a lot of decks down. So Brainstorm, foil Brainstorm. All these new arts. There's a new art every few months, it seems like, at least online. Difficult to keep up with. That one actually probably is the most resembling of the original Ice Age art. So, respect. The only one I really hate of the Brainstorm arts is the literal translation to it, when it's just a giant cloud with that looks like a brain, and it's got a lightning bolt going through it. I think that art is absurd. Okay. I think it's worth playing this, getting rid of the Lotus Petal and playing Chalice. They have 7 cards in their hand. Yes, they could force. Yes. Drum roll, please. Hey, you know, Chalice is such a card that just shuts a lot of people down, and it's an unfair card. You know, unfortunately, it's just that these other decks, these red-blue Delvers and the Leovold decks, they're not oppressive so much, but they just take up so much of the field in competitive Legacy that you have to play cards like this, you know, to just be able to play. You know, you have to play with Chalice and Blood Moon and Trinisphere, and I mean, they're, you know, I can't say that I hate playing with them, but you know, I'd much rather play with more proactive cards. Wow, okay. So they didn't draw a Force. This is incredibly unlucky on their side. Unless they don't have Force of Will in their deck. Which is very possible. I mean, they're expensive on Magic Online and in paper. You know, they very well could just have Daze and be looking for Daze. And they could have dazed the Chalice there and gotten it done. But I would imagine after sideboard they have some kind of removal, like a Braid, or I mean, just the umpteen other versions of artifact removal. You know, Ancient Grudge and Fiery Confluence, and even down to Disenchant, which of course this deck wouldn't be using Disenchant. But we're gonna just play this land here and be boring. We kind of blew our load a little early by playing the Chalice. It really shuts them down as much as possible. So there's the sideboard I was talking about. They got the Smash of Smithereens, great value card. does 3 damage to me, and gets rid of the artifact and frees them up to play all kinds of 1-drops. So this is going to be difficult. The one thing that's good that I know is that currently they most likely don't have Force of Will in their hand, because they would have countered Chalice of the Void. So if I get something to play Seething Song, I'm just going to go for it. And I'm going to Through the Breach and Inferno Titan. And then I'm just going to hope for a Soul Land and do Fiery Confluence, and hopefully that'll be the game. Because Fiery Confluence can do 6 damage to the opponent for 4 mana, straight up. Don't need to worry about artifacts or creatures, just 6 damage to them. No problem. This card is relatively cheap online. I think it's only a ticket or two last time I checked. But in paper, good lord, something like $30 or $40 on in paper. Incredible. Okay. Land. Yuck. Well, guess we're just gonna take a little bit of a beating here, folks. Sorry. This is how this deck goes, though. If anybody hadn't figured this out yet, it kind of either blows out the opponent or it gets blown out. It's never really in between. It's never really a good back and forth. It is a fun deck to play with. It's just that decks like this are not fun to play against, because they kind of lead you along, think that you're winning, and then turn the table on you completely. On purpose. Which is fine. You know, I'm not hating on it. It's just, you know, a little disappointing when things like that happen. But oh so sweet when it works. So I might have one more turn. Well, I mean, they got 7 cards in their hand. We're just going to go for it here. If they have counter spells, you know, it happens. Oh, they did have Force of Will this whole time. Yuck. Okay. Well, that's the end of that match. Like I said, you know, red-blue, it's a difficult match just about every time. When you do get the win, it is very sweet. A lot of the sideboard cards, like you saw, are in there for that kind of matchup. There's so many different versions of it. There are Miracles, there's Red-Blue Delver, there's, you know, Leovold, like I told you. There are 4-color Delver versions. There are 2 different, I think, 3-color Delver versions. So there are just all kinds of different decks that are similar to that run Force of Will. And they take up most of the field. So don't be surprised when you run into that deck most of the time. And don't be discouraged, because it's not impossible to beat it. It may have seemed like it in that match, but it's not impossible to beat it. If I had gotten an Emrakul or a Sneak Attack early on, and they didn't have that Force of Will like they didn't when I played Chalice, that game would have been over. So, well, thank you for joining me, folks. I'm going to keep playing a couple matches here. Hopefully I didn't double mic myself and don't have to delete this video. Have a good night.